Welcome in, Dovetail Fishing fans, to another episode of Bass Gaming. I am your host today, Ronnie Moore, and I've got a special guest today for episode 2 of this series. This guy is on your loading screen for the intro of the game. You'll see him. He's a playable character in the game. Welcome into the show today. How are you today, Scott Martin, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro?
I'm doing great, Ronnie. Thanks for having me. I'm actually on my way now to do a little fishing today. And, we've had some cold fronts hit down here, but I'm all dressed up, got my socks on. Took me a minute to find my socks, so we're all good, man. We're all good. Just heading to the lake to do some filming, and getting anxious for I don't know, about 7 more days. The countdown begins, right?
Yeah, the 2022 Bassmaster Elite Series season is starting up very soon, and it's going to be in your home state of Florida. I'm going to go ahead and get the gameplay rolling here. We're out at Lake Chickamauga in the game. I pulled up on a spot. I figured I'd get to my first area and we'd start fishing. But for you are in Florida right now. That's where you live, and our first 2 elites are starting there. So it's got to be very comforting to go to places that not necessarily really well, but just the comfort of your state. You know what the weather's been like the last few weeks, and you know kind of what to expect this season of the year.
Yeah, you're right, Ronnie. Palatka, we start off in the St. John's, and that's like 5 hours for me. So the only time I ever fished that river system or that body of water is when we've had a tournament in the past. So I don't know it well. It is a complicated fishery just because of all the different variables between tide, wind tide, the salinity of the water, certain parts of the river, spawning canals, lakes you can lock into, all the different things. So, it's a challenging river system. And then we go to Harris Chain. It's again not what I'm used to. It's 7 or 8 lakes all connected, very diverse fishery, a lot of offshore fishing, totally different than Okeechobee, of course. So, but yeah, you're right. I love Florida. I love fishing in Florida for the Florida bass. So starting off, I couldn't ask for anything better. Hopefully, I'll start off this year at Palatka a little bit better than I did last year. But you know what? It is what it is. I'm excited about this next year.
That's what's fun about fishing is it's different every single day. You could hero one day, you could zero the next, and you can redeem yourself just as quick. But hey, I'm already starting out great on Chickamauga. First bass, I missed the first 2 casts. I'll say I lost the first 2 fish that I hooked up with,
Not
but
bad.
a 411 to kick
one,
off.
dude.
That is a good one. So hey, I take
That
that
is
in
a
my
good one.
5 fish limit all day. So I'm starting out at
I
Chickamauga
think I
here in the
fished that
game.
dock, by the way. I fished that dock. I think it's right around Dayton Boat Dock area, if I'm thinking correctly. And I have fished that dock. And that's what's so cool about the game is that, when they built the game, they're like, okay, we're going to go to, Guntersville and Sam Rayburn and, Chickamauga and all these different places. And then you literally go there, like at Chickamauga or at Guntersville, especially, like you're up in like Spring Creek and stuff. And you're looking around, you're like, oh, there's like the cat food plant, and there's the big dock there. So it's really neat to be able to see all the different familiarities in the game. And I actually would take it a step farther and say that for someone that's never fished Guntersville, and you were going
Exactly.
to go to Guntersville and you play this game, you can literally go to Guntersville and go, okay, I somewhat feel familiar about this area.
Well, I know that, hey, for folk, hey, if they've never been to Chickamauga, but if anglers have been, they'll know, yes, I'm right beside Dayton Boat Dock. That's the launch area. And they're the first point or 2 right around there as where I'm loaded up. I mean, I'm catching them like every single cast. And, I catch in smallmouth as well. That's what's cool is they mix in all the species. Some of the species get much bigger than others, like walleye and striper, so that's very good. But I already got a 411 in the boat. And one thing that's realistic about this, you mentioned it, I think the mapping on this game is incredible. And I know that you were big with the developers on making sure that the lakes looked correct, they were accurate, and the species that were in there are pretty close to what they're supposed to be. And then also, like you said, this is like a good pre-tournament practice. If you've never been to a place, you can pull up and kind of see what it looks like. And we'll get to the underwaters for sure later. But I mean, I'm starting out with a swim jig and I can bring that through the grass. And it's a school of fish all loaded up on this point at Chickamauga. And it's just been incredible already. This is a great start. I hope this sets the tone for the game.
Well, I played it the other day. People have to go to my YouTube channel, Scott Martin Challenge, and watch. We did some gameplay, and McCoy and I challenged each other a little one-on-one. And that joker had a secret spot on Sam Rayburn. And so I go out and I'm fishing around. I'm like literally running a pattern. I'm like, all right, look at this point with these trees. And I catch like a 6-pounder. And then I go the next, we get some 5-pounder. And then so it's his turn. That joker runs up in some little backwater deal and starts whacking 10-pounders. And I'm like, that's not even fair, dude. Like, for real. So, and we caught a bunch of big stripers and And man, we've caught a big catfish in that thing, and it's pretty cool.
Speaking of a big striper, I think I got a big striper on right now. I hope that's the one thing I gotta play with the drag a little bit, make sure I don't lose these fish. And then landing them at the boat, you can either wear them down, which is cool in this game. You can either wear them down and it automatically will land the fish, or you can try to horse them in the boat and time it up. Luckily, I just landed this striper, an 8.5 pound. That's a good striper. I'll take that all day. That's a fun. Hey, I saw on your social media the other day, you were at Lake Hartwell, which is the site of the Classic, and you're not allowed to practice there from January until the tournament in March. So you practiced in December and you caught some fish, but I heard you caught some big striper and it looked like you caught a decent one in your photos as well.
I did, and ironically in the game that when I was playing against McCoy, I caught a big striper and I was like, that was kind of cool, and I've caught striper before, but then I was out there in Hartwell. It was deep, deep deal. And I saw these fish on the Panoptics and I, threw my bait out there and I caught it. And sure enough, pretty nice little striper there. And they're a lot of fun. I think we should have Bass should, we did the redfish tournament. Bass should have a striper tournament. I think that could go big.
Hey, you should have saw the number of texts after we had the redfish event of anglers saying we need to do a crappie tournament where a couple Elite Series pros with some crappie pros and we just go crappie fishing. And I was like, that would get so intense. We'd have 3 or 4 live scopes on the boat and they would just have brush piles like crazy, but it's very fun catching different species here. And there are a lot of different achievements as well. I know the St. Lawrence River, there is an achievement in this game and a game mode to catch the most species possible. I think there's 17 to 25 different species that you can catch. But for you, this is kind of cool. We mentioned it, Guntersville, Chickamauga. There are a lot of lakes in here that are on the Elite Series schedule. There is the classic location from 2021, which is Lake Ray Roberts. We've got the St. Johns River in your neck of the woods, Chickamauga, Guntersville as well. A lot of different places to go. And it kind of broadens your horizons for people who maybe they'll fish the St. Lawrence River because they're from up north, but this gets you a little taste of down south fishing or the different techniques you have to use on these. Because I see the recommendations, throwing a lipless crankbait in Florida, that's key. And so when they recommend that, Chickamauga, I'm going to throw a swim jig, I'm going to throw a crankbait as well. So it's pretty spot on what you can catch the fish on and how it acts in the water.
Well, we did. We programmed the game, and I was a part of that, and I'm sure a lot of the other pros were as well. But we programmed the game to be as most realistic as possible as far as feeding times. You'll notice in the game, like when you're doing free play, like go to your best spot first thing in the morning and see what happens. Like, and then like later on, if you go there, the fish aren't there. It's like they move throughout the day at different locations, just like in real life. So, there's feeding times. It's cool. It's a fun game. And what I'm excited about is, they're always doing updates to this thing. So, this is the first version and they're going to keep doing updates to it constantly and keep tweaking things. But, it's when most of the country's frozen right now and ice on their water, it's a great tool just to, have fun or, pass a little time or, if you're new to fishing, learn a little bit about fishing.
Hey, I could be stubborn, but like you said, there are times of the days and landing this fish right here, a 412 largemouth. I will say I didn't cheat. I didn't set it on rookie mode, but I did look and it said Chickamauga 7 to 8 a.m. is going to be the peak time for largemouth. And you said, I went to a spot I thought I could catch them on, and we've already got a couple 4-pounders in the boat. But for you, Scott, I wanted to talk about as we transition. I'm going to continue to try to catch these fish every cast. It's been, I could not have gotten more lucky than pulling up on this spot during the interview. But for you, you're going into your second Elite Series season. You've been a pro for over 20 years now. You're a veteran, very seasoned pro. You know exactly how this tournament game goes, and you've won at the biggest level. But now transitioning at this point in your career into the Elite Series, it's going to be your second season and your first Classic this year. What are your expectations? I know that 2021 was great for most of the season, and then, you have some work to be done at the end of the year, but going into 2022, you have to feel comfortable because the routine, the anglers, the staff, everything is getting more familiar.
Yeah. For me, the tournament game is the same, obviously. I will say that the competition, overall, especially at the elite level, just everybody's more versatile. 10 years ago, people pick their lane. You can get down the list and say, I know what this guy's going to go do this tournament. I know what this guy's going to go do this tournament. And I've always tried to stay as versatile as possible. But I think a lot of anglers now are just as versatile as me. And so, it's really making it difficult to find them. It's like, the minute you think you found something special, you roll in there for the tournament and there's another boat or two always. And so, and even with a limited field like we have on the elite. So, as far as, last year goes, it was okay until the end. Obviously, I completely train wrecked the last two tournaments. I don't have a good excuse other than I just made some bad decisions and it just wasn't meant to be, right? But if I would have come out of New York like I should have, at least with some decent finishes, I would have finished. I'd have finished high in the points, and it'd have been a whole different outlook. But you know what? Last year's last year. This year is this year. Like you said, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable there. I know what to expect. I'm excited about it. And my goals this year, last year, really for the last 2 years, I've had to fish a little different for me. All through my career on FLW, I didn't ever worry about points. I just fished. I fished as hard as I could. I try to put myself in positions to win. I gambled as much as I could in tournaments to push the envelope, and it worked out. At the end of the year, I was somewhere in the top, 4 or 5, or won Angler of the Year one time. So, it just kind of worked out. But, 2 years ago when I had to qualify for the elites, to the opens, that was,
It's hard.
no doubt. It was hard. I mean, it was just, it actually was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I don't say that lightly. It's kind of out in a way. Like it was a different mindset where you're fishing against the grittiest local fishermen, the most hungry professionals trying to get back in the elites. I mean, that was a tough one, but I had to fish for points. So all year long, I wasn't trying to gamble and win a tournament. I had to worry about making the elites and finishing on the top, points just so I could, make it. And so that was a different mindset all year long. And I was fortunate enough to do it. Last year, my main goal, and I've said it across to everyone, I want a classic one day. And so, my first year on the elites, my goal last year was I have to make the classic. It would be a letdown, in my opinion, if I went out and I did all this and I want to make the classic to win the classic and I don't make it. It would have been a super disappointing season. So, being that I made it, no matter what place I finished in points, that's a success check mark in my book.
Hey, you're at a level playing field now. You're at a level playing field now. If you're the last one in the classic or the first one in the classic, it's 50 something anglers going for the title now. It's all fair.
Correct. So this year, you said, what are my goals? I say to myself, what are my goals? And I've been really mulling on it a lot lately. And, there's a lot of emotions that go involved with, how you should start the season off, how you should mentally prepare. And I look at the schedule, it's pretty much back to back for the first half of the season. For me, look, I'm going to go out and I am literally going to try to just fish like I used to fish. I'm going to try to, I'm not sure I'm going to win one, but my goal is to try to win a tournament this year. And I'm going to put myself hopefully in position. I'm going to gamble. So I might come in last at one of the tournaments. I'm taking each tournament, and once it's over, like Palatka, the day it's over, I'm shifting it away and I'm not thinking about it anymore. So if I do good, I'm going to take the momentum and run. If I don't do as good as I wanted to, I'm going right to Harris Chain, and I got to pull my pants up and do it again. So I don't care about points. And I think that's what builds pressure throughout the year. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in such and such place and I need to make, I don't care. I'm just going to go have fun, film as much great content as we can, and just pray hard, fish hard, hopefully host up a trophy by the end of the year.
Well, and that's what a lot of other professional sports say. What are you going to do celebrating this success? And they're, hey, we're going to take 24 hours and we're going to enjoy it, and then we're going to move on and we're going to go to the next event, whether it's a good or bad tournament, good, bad game, whatever it is. But hey, I made an adjustment. I've been catching them. It might not be the smartest thing, but you've probably dealt with this. Caught them almost every cast on a swim jig. I decided to switch up to a crankbait, and it's still working out well. I've obviously just found a great spot overall, but the graph on this game is loaded. And I wanted you to talk about that. In real life, when you see your graph loaded, I mean, you might as well, you got to fish there. You can't leave there. You need to fish there. And in the game, that's a good indication you're at a good spot. If you're fishing there and there's a lot of fish on the graph, you just have to figure out what they want to bite. I've now switched up to a crankbait, and I'm still catching some fish, and it maybe will trigger some bigger bites now. And that's kind of a process you have to do while you're on the water in the Elite Series and professional fishing. And actually right now I'm making a mistake. I just got snagged on some underwater grass with a crankbait. That's why it's not a weedless bait like a swim jig is. I just got snagged and I broke it free. And look at that. I just triggered a bite. I just triggered that looks like a big one. That is, hey, I want you to speak to that. that is it. This looks like it could be the biggest one of the day so far, but you snag
Ah,
your grass, you get stuck, and those fish are
yeah.
there. If it's loaded, they're paying attention, and when you rip that bait free, they're on it. That's a real life thing.
Well, yeah. Well, the two things. One is you're talking about the graph, right? Sonar. I run Garmin. I've got my Garmin hoodie on right now. I run Garmin, and with the sonar capabilities that we have at Garmin now, if you don't see fish on your graph, guess what? There are no fish there, and I've never been able to catch one when there's not one there. So if you see them on the graph, you better get ready. Now the tricky part is how do you catch them? And it's just like what you did. In my opinion, I think, this is just me throwing it out there. I think 70% of the bites that any person ever is because the fish was necessarily hungry, like a schooling fish. A schooling fish busting on the surface, you throw
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
bait to it, it's trying to eat and eat your bait. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that fish that's laying down there in the grass, that fish that's under the dock. A lot of times it's not that they were hungry and chased the bait down. It was a reaction to the bait coming close to them. So it's a reaction bite where, yeah, they are hungry, obviously, but it's not like they're chasing it down like, oh, there's a piece of food, let me run it down.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
something that bait has to do to trigger that fish. And so that's why we switch baits up all the time in terms. You'll see 12, 15 rods on the deck of my boat, and I'll rotate several different lures a lot of times in one area because it's like, I might throw a moving bait like a chatterbait and it's vibrating. And if that's not getting them to react, I can pick up a worm that has no vibration at all and drag it slow on the bottom, and then catch all the fish in the world. Or vice versa. You've been catching them on a worm, they won't touch a worm. You throw a chatterbait, they destroy it. It's all about triggering that reaction, and every day is a little different. Every part of the day is a little different. And again, in the game, you're seeing that right with what you just did.
Yeah, and then that fish was an 8.3, the biggest of the day, one of the biggest I've caught in this game. Now, this kind of
That's a
resembles my real life fishing. I haven't caught a double digit fish, but I caught a lot of really solid tournament fish that you want, those 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounders. And in this game, it's the realistic thing. I don't know if it's my approach, but a bunch of 7s and 8s over the time of playing this, and that was an 8.3.
that's good one. There's actually some big ones on Chickamauga.
Really big ones.
I've had people tagging me on my Instagram. So, and again, I'll share this with anybody. So if anybody's playing the game and you catch a big
Yes.
fish, or any fish that you're proud of, screenshot it on your phone or do whatever you want to do, and post it on Instagram. Tag me, Scott Martin Challenge, and also tag Dovetail Fishing, of course, and Bassmaster. And I'll a lot of times I'm taking those and resharing them on my story. So if anybody out there wants to get a little extra publicity on my Instagram page, just screenshot it, tag me, and we'll throw you up there.
Well, I screenshotted that one and uploaded it to Dovetail Live so that they know that I caught that one as well. I'm proud of that one. I even shared a striper the other day. I don't get to catch a bunch of striper, but I know how fun they are. I even uploaded one and I tagged Dovetail in it and they shared it because I was like, hey, I'm a largemouth, I'm a spotted bass, I'm a smallmouth guy, but I'll respect a good striper. And right now, Scott, I'm feeling like I need a move. I just caught another good one. I caught a 5.5 pounder, and I'll take that in every tournament. Right now, I've got a couple 4s, an 8, a 5, but I want to go and test myself. So I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to switch from this area. Maybe the dumbest thing I've done all stream, but I'm going to move from this area, which I've caught them so many casts in a row. I'm going to go find another spot on Chickamauga. But for you, how important is this? I'm going to kind of treat this as like it's day one of an event. And I just caught a good limit and I don't want to burn the whole school out. So I'm going to go make a spot change to find another area. How often do you have to balance that in your tournament fishing where, hey, I don't want to wear out an area and I want to come back tomorrow and catch them. So I need to go and spend the rest of my day practicing or exploring other places. Cause at this point, that's what I'm doing on Chickamauga.
Oh, I mean, I've won a few tournaments with that mentality. Forest Wood Cup years ago, first day of the tournament, I caught a 20-something pound bag right off the bat by 8 o'clock that morning. I spent the rest of the day, running around, and I actually found a few places the rest of that day that allowed me to, kind of finish off the deal. And it's always good to be able to bust a big bag right off the bat. And but you do have to share. I mean, not share. You do have to manage. Okay, that's the word we use. Manage your fish. And that's a real thing. And it takes a lot of discipline to do it. And I've had it work out most of the time, but I've also had it burn me. I've had it burn me where I've literally finished out an event and I've come up short by a pound. And I say to myself, God, if I'd have just stayed on that spot on day one, I know I could have caught another coalfish or two and probably made the cut or won the tournament. I've had that happen many, many times. And I've had it happen a lot on spawning fish. So my new rule now on spawning fish, if I see a big old
Catch them.
female, I'm not leaving. I'm
Yeah.
not leaving her. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you show up the next day, and she's either gone or she's even harder to catch. So, it's just one of those deals. But yeah, you do have to manage the fish, and that is part of the game. And that's what I think is so fun about bass fishing in general. It's not the jump of the fish. It's not the fight of the fish. It's figuring out the game, right? It's just this sport we play. It's a game. And it's mentally, physically a game where you have to make all these decisions, on and off the water about where you're going to start, where you're going to fish, how long are you going to fish, what are you going to catch, what kind of weight do you think you need? I mean, that's a guessing game every single day.
There are hundreds of variables in the sport. And then I'll say in video game fishing, you may be able to catch them out in the middle of the lake, someplace that might not be realistic, but that's not the case here. I decided to pull it between a dock and a point. There's a little stretch of bank as well. I wanted to explore the dock and the bank, or in the point. That is just two great areas for schools of bass. And so I caught one on my first cast, which is great. But I want to talk to you as well about your unfinished business. That's what you called 2021, your video series. And if people haven't watched it, go to your YouTube channel, Scott Martin Challenge. You can be able to go and watch all of those videos that McCoy and your whole team have produced. Fantastic content. But you called your series Unfinished Business because your father, Roland Martin,
it's actually unfinished family business.
That's the connection, right. Because Roland, your dad, is a legend in the sport from basically, the first moment tournament fishing was started. And that's the one thing in the whole sport of fishing that he didn't necessarily accomplish, was winning a classic. So give you some pride that now you're fishing in your first classic. And maybe if you win it for the Martin family, that, he'll give you a big old attaboy again for accomplishing something amazing.
Yeah. I can't even really think about it too deep because it's pretty, that'd be like the most powerful. I don't even sure how I'd act. I mean, it'd be unbelievable, for lack of words to even describe it. But, my dad fished for all those years, he accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish, but that classic eluded him. He finished second once or twice, high up many, many times. I think he fished 25 or 27 classics, some crazy number. And yes. And so, I that's what I'm here for. I'm trying, I know winning the classic, I say I'm going to try to go win the classic. I don't say that lightly. That's something that every single angler on the planet dreams about. Right. So, and I dream just like they dream, but that's my goal. That's something I'm fishing for. I hope it happens. It would be unbelievable, but that's the whole reason I'm here. There's a lot of shakeup in the industry a few years ago, a lot of different places guys went and decisions people made. And my decision, I wanted to come back to bass, where I wanted to finish out my career, and try to pull off something special, and that's why I'm here. I'm here because as a kid growing up, I mean, it's funny, like I've never fished in a classic, but I've probably been to more classics than most people that's listening to this podcast, because I've gone to 25 or 30 of them, and I remember sitting up in the stand with Rick Clunn's family, and literally sitting next to Rick Clunn's daughter and his family when he won the classic, and they ran out through the deal and jumped in the boat with him. Like, so all these great moments, I want to just feel that from the inside of the arena going through that tunnel. I used to wipe the boats down. Sammy Lee from Ranger used to have me come down. I was the boat wiper. I wiped all the boats before they went through the tunnel at the arena. I'd go off and blast off. So, I've done all those parts of it, and as stressful and chaotic as the classic's going to be, I've been to some of the parties and stuff over the years. I'm going to feel a little comfortable with that. But that being said, it's still a classic. I'm going to get butterflies. I've got to keep my head straight, screwed on straight. So I'm going to, I'm probably not going to hang out much. I'm going to weigh my fish in. I'm going to go back, get my stuff ready. I've got to try to balance filming this, of course, which, we're going to low key film it. I'm not trying to go crazy with the production. Hopefully it turns out really good with the production, but I just know how important it is to stay extremely focused, because what I've learned over 20 something years of professional fishing, every tournament that I've ever done well in, won in, or lost, always boiled down to some small decision that I made in my mind. And that usually happens either in practice or a lot of times even during the tournament. And it's one of those quick things. It's not like a aha moment, like, oh, I completely see everything clearly. It's like this little voice in your head that says, the weather's doing this. Maybe you should try this. It's something that just kind of uh, just pops in your mind. It's not something that it's not a 2+2 thing. And you have to be ready to hear that. You have to be ready to act on that as well. So you not only have to be mentally strong, you have to be physically prepared as well, because anytime think of these things, it takes effort. It takes effort to make a 20-mile run up a river. It takes effort to go skip docks for the next 3 hours. All these different things that pop up in your head, and those are the things you have to be really in tune on. And I know the Bassmasters Classic is going to be a lot of that as well, where it's going to be something gets shown to me, either through practice or me being on the water, that I either hear, see, or think of, that's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's the Classic is the coolest thing. I've been to 10, I believe, and I've been to 8 of them working. This will be my 9th that I've worked. But like you said, as a kid growing up, going to them, it was the coolest thing ever. Not only did I get to meet my heroes that are competing, I got to meet my broadcasting heroes, Tommy Sanders, Mark Zona, the guys I work with now. And it's still a dream when they're like, hey, keep it up, kid, work hard, and you can get to where you want to be. And then I'm like, now I'm working with the guys. So, and it gives me a sense of pride broadcasting the event that it is the Bassmaster Classic. It is very important to the sport of fishing. And I need to keep that in my mind when I'm talking about it, because it is life-changing for every angler that competes in it, not even the winners, just the people who get to compete. But then when you have that winning moment, everyone in the arena is affected forever. They'll always remember, I was in the arena when so-and-so won. I was in the arena when the confetti went off, when he caught that 8-pounder and it was a 1-pound victory, or it was close at the scales. There will never be something that tops the moment where 2 anglers walk up on stage, somebody puts their fish there at the end of the tournament, last 2 guys to weigh in, and who has the most weight, and they decide it right there at the scales. That's the coolest thing in the sport. And Scott, I took some of your advice. You were talking about slowing down and switching up to maybe a worm and dragging it. I saw some contours on this spot where the point off the dock runs down and it dips into a ditch. And so I decided to throw a Texas Rig craw out there and kind of drag it.
Yeah.
And the visuals in this game, we just wrapped up our Classic talk, but the visuals in this game under the water is incredible. It really, for people who've never fished on a boat out in a lake and tried to picture what these fish are sitting on, this is a great picture of it. It's a flat point, and then it has a ditch that drops off into deeper water. There's rocks, there's grass, and you kind of got to bring it through it. And all of a sudden, when it comes off that drop, there are the fish. And so it takes years and years for you guys to figure that out. Hey, you didn't go scuba diving to figure it out on your local lake. You had to feel it. You had to close your eyes and imagine it. And folks get an inside look at it in the game.
No, that's right. I mean, it's the sport of fishing is interesting when you think of it like that, because it's like we're looking at the surface of the water, and we have to, as anglers, I'm visualizing, the rocks down there, or a drop off, or a school of fish, or whatever it may be, or a brush pile. Every time you fish a brush pile in your life, you think what you think the brush pile looks like in your brain.
Yes, it's huge, and it's just a twig.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. And so, but again, with sonar nowadays, you can really get a better perspective of what things really look like. But yeah, there's all that underwater structure, and you're right. It gives somebody can buy this game that's never bass fished, never fished a tournament before in their life. It's the beauty of it. They can buy this game, start playing the game. In a short minute, they will understand the basics of how to catch a fish. They will also understand the basics of what tournament fishing is like and how to fish a tournament. So I know there's probably thousands and thousands of kids and adults that are sitting here going like, I really don't understand, like, how do I enter a bass tournament? What's a bass tournament like? What do you do in a bass tournament? Like, what's this 5-fish limit thing? Like, what does all that mean? Play the game and you'll know. Like,
exactly.
Or what do you catch fish on? Are they just floating around out there and nothing? No, they're actually on rocks and ditches and docks and underwater logs and all that. So it gives you, that's just cool. It's really cool. And again, I can't wait to see all the new updates they keep coming out with this game. It's just so many more things coming.
Yeah, they just did the Predator pack where it's an update to the boats and the different color schemes. And what's cool is you can get an awesome wrap that's nothing but flames if you catch enough fish and having the achievements and whatnot. I just caught a 10-pound walleye. That's one of the biggest fish I've caught today. And normally, Scott, yeah, exactly. If we were in real life,
button. It's the X triangle and then the left keypad button, and it goes straight to fish fry.
Yeah,
You fillet
exactly.
the fish out, it goes straight to fish fry.
That's the walleye are some of the best eating fish. So are crappie. And hey, I would be upset. I've caught a lot of fish today, but I would be upset normally. And we'd talk about the fish that I lost. I've lost quite a few today just because of the drag, or I've had so much competition right at the boat that they short strike it and I miss them. But I'm not too bummed about the fish that I've lost because I've caught so many today on Chickamauga. This has been awesome. 10-pound walleye. I actually, I'll tell a quick story. I went to Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota. I know you've been there before, and I went one year, and then the next year I went about 3 weeks later, and I went to every single boulder I caught smallmouth bass on the previous year. And because I was a little bit different time of year, just a couple weeks later, the fish were in a different transition. I caught walleye on every single boulder that I stopped on, and the smallmouth had moved to a different depth of boulders. And I was sitting here, had to figure out, where did these fish go? It's been a year, obviously, but they still live in this lake. But are they in 10 feet of water? Are they in 5 feet of water? Are they back out in 30 feet of water? Because it changes so much. That's what's cool about this sport. So many variables, not only the baits, the water depth, the spot location, time of day, weather. There is so much. We want to talk about a football field's 100 yards long and it's confined environment. The lakes that we fish, there are huge bodies of water and so many variables that make you guys the best in the world.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great lake, by the way. Mille Lacs is awesome, and
It is great.
and you know, those smallmouth, but you know, on a lot of lakes you call them the ghost of the fish because you know when we fish lakes that have multi-species, like we used to fish beaver all the time, and beaver actually had a great population of smallmouth, but they would only bite certain days. And when they disappeared, man, nobody could ever figure out where they went. Like it was
Here
like
one day, gone the next.
one day you could catch 17 pounds of smallmouth, and you literally if you were targeting them. So, you know, they do move around, and you know, it's always challenging to figure out where they go.
Well, Scott, we talked about the Classic. We talked about starting the season in the state of Florida, but the schedule for the Elite Series this year is incredible. It is honestly the motto of Big Bass, Big Stage, Big Dreams. Like, you guys could catch 100 pounds in 6 or 7 of the 9 events if it works out that way. And for you, I think because you've fished so long in your career, you've probably been to almost every single body of water. Maybe Lake Oahe is going to be a new one for you, but we've got the Mississippi River, the St. Lawrence River / Lake Ontario. You've got Santee Cooper, Chickamauga, the place we're fishing right here, Lake Fork, Pickwick, and then obviously Hartwell for the Classic, and those 2 Florida places as well. How do you break down a new body of water like Lake Oahe, and then answer this question as well, as how do you break down a body of water you've been to quite a bit, but maybe a different time of the year now?
Yeah, you know, for me, it's the fish most all the time are not in the same area. It's not the same pattern, and that's due to water levels, temperature, moon phases, all the different things, especially in the spring because you have, you know, fish move so fast that time of the year. So, you know, it's very hard to pull up to a lake that you've been to before and say that I'm going to catch them in this certain area. And it's really a bad habit, to be honest with you. You know, one of the only times that I've probably caught fish consistently in places is in the summertime, maybe like in a Kentucky lake, a ledge tournament, stuff like that. Those fish seem to set up more times than not, at least on some of the same ledges. But, you know, for me, like going back to Harris Chain, like I've already been thinking, like there's lakes that I've never fished before on the Harris Chain that I know have great fish, and I know guys catch them out of there really well. And I'm gonna have to spend some time on those lakes. You know, I'm not gonna try to fall back. There's a good chance that I may not even fish anything that I've ever fished before, other than maybe some sight fishing areas. I'll just go fish new stuff. And the same thing on the St. John's. You know, there's places so big that, you know, it's a timing thing there. So I got to first figure out exactly what stage those fish are in and what stage they're in certain parts of the river, because they do kind of cycle north or south to north. So I got to figure that out. But, you know, Oahe, totally, you know, to me, I feel like I'm going to the moon, to be honest with you. It just feels that way because it's like
It'll look like it too.
I know. It's like there's not a tree around. Like it's just rocks and dirt. And, you know, I'm sure it's beautiful. And there's a lot of fish there. You know, but what are those smallmouth are going to use for structure? Obviously, they're going to use rocks and drop offs. I mean, that's just what they're going to use: points, rocks, and drop offs. The challenging part for me in Oahe is going to be trying to decipher. We talk about walleye, like where the walleye are, where the walleye aren't, because I don't want to spend a lot of time catching walleye. Because as well as I do, when you graph them, a lot of times you're just confused. You just
Yeah.
don't know. You're like, is that a walleye? Is that a smallmouth? And you have to literally physically catch one or two just to decide, is that a 3 pound smallie or walleye? And that wastes a lot of time in practice. It can also waste a lot of time in the tournament. So I'm going to go there a few days early and fish in an adjacent lake and really spend a lot of time trying to tune in my graphs so I can at least figure out, like, okay, I'm pretty sure those are walleye. Move on, or no, those are definitely smallmouth. Let me waypoint that. So that's my goal there. And I'll tell you another lake that I haven't ever fished, and you won't believe this, but Santee. I've never fished Santee.
You've never fished
I've
Santee
never
Cooper?
fished Santee. I've
Oh my
never fished
goodness.
Santee. I fished Santee when I was a kid, but I don't really count it because I was like 16, 15 years old at the time. Fished it for just like a half a day with a friend of mine passing through. We launched there real close to where my dad used to live. He used to live there. And so, I've never fished it. So I'm excited about that lake too. And also a little nervous because I don't, it's just, you got two lakes.
That's
They're
when
both
you got to
big,
catch them big too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no messing around on that deal. So, but I am looking forward to those two lakes. I love the new challenge, because I think I've done well over the years on lakes that I've never been to before. And I think it falls into that mentality, is that I don't have any prior knowledge. I'm not going and checking other places that I've fished in the past, because like I said, you have to be disciplined not to do that. As hard as it is, you still fall back on checking a few places you've caught them in the.
Exactly.
You can't not
History.
check a few places that you've caught them in the past, and so that takes time. And every minute you spend on something unproductive is time wasted that you could be finding something really good. So it's part of the process, but I'm excited about the year. I mean, for the most part, I feel pretty good at all the lakes that we're going to go to. Again, a couple of the unknowns, but it'll be fun.
Well, hey, I ended it here at this spot. This fish, not my biggest at all, a 7-ounce spotted bass, but I wanted to end it on the right species. I had a striper just before that and walleye as well. So we've got so many species. And like you said, it's going to be very hard for me next time I come to Lake Chickamauga in the Dovetail Fishing Bassmaster 2022, not to go to these same spots, because today was phenomenal. I enjoyed catching them on a swim jig, caught them on a square bill crankbait and a Texas rig craw. So what a great,
you can drop a waypoint too. You can drop a waypoint on the game.
I dropped a waypoint at Gunnersville. I had Hank Cherry tell me, I said, hey, I've caught a lot of striper. What would be your advice? And he said, I think I saw some bass right by the boat, back up a little bit. And I did. And I caught a 5-pound spotted bass right when I did. So I dropped a waypoint right there. So it's very, very cool. Scott, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you for the fans tuning in for another episode of Big Bass Gaming here for Dovetail. And Scott, how can people follow you not only on the Bassmaster Elite Series, but all year long on your social media? Your YouTube is big and you do a lot of great videos there. And I'll look forward to interviewing you throughout the year and probably having you on Bassmaster Live at a certain point.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's my goal this year. Try to be on Bassmaster Live and be in the finals for sure. I'd love to come by the studio, hang out. But hey, look, we're going to be at all the tournaments. We're going to have a whole crew there. I'd love to meet all the fans. We usually have some hats and T-shirts and things that we have there for people. But love to interact with as many people as possible. But as far as following us, it's real simple. Instagram is where I live most of the time. Scott Martin Challenge on YouTube as well, and Facebook. We're doing some stuff on TikTok as well. So just type in Scott Martin Challenge. That's basically how you find me on everything. And we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully see everybody out there on the road this year.
It'll be a great one, Scott. Hey, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you to everyone tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode of Big Bass Gaming.
All right. See you, Ronnie. See you guys.